Hi, welcome back to the workshop for episode 18 of Great Guitar Build Off 2023. And in this episode we've got a couple of things going on. We're going to continue with the headstock binding, which has been a bit of a drawn out process, but trust me, it turns out really nice. And secondly, we're going to start work on creating a set of templates so I can get this Floyd Rose tremolo routed in. But before I can do anything, I really need to set about cleaning up in the shop. I've been doing quite a bit of work in here recently. I've also been doing a little bit of work in the house and upgrading in what used to be the garage next door. The result of that is that there's a lot of stuff accumulating on either the bench or the worktop behind it. I really like having this bit of worktop behind the bench because it does give me somewhere where I can just turn around quickly and put stuff out of the way that I'm not using. Really does help to keep the bench clear. The downside of that is I've got somewhere really handy where I can just turn around and put stuff to help keep the bench clear. Trouble is I never clear the worktop itself, so over the weeks just all sorts of junk gets accumulated there, stuff that either needs putting away or throwing away or just something else happening with it. But it does get to the point where the clutter stops you working, so I'm just going to give it a quick clean up, get stuff out of the way. And already looking a lot better, so we can crack on with getting the next sections of the headstock binding done. Okay, so that's the second of those bits of binding put in place. It seems to have gone in okay. What I'm going to do is quickly put the other three pieces into the section back here, and then I can get some masking tape bound really tightly around the whole lot. Okay, so we'll leave this glue to dry and go and find some other mischief we can get up to. And the mischief I have in mind is around the fitting of this thing. Now, I've never fitted one of these before, but I kind of know what's involved. I've been doing quite a bit of research and I've got a fairly good idea of how I'm going to go about this, but I'm going to need a set of templates. Now, I searched and searched and I couldn't really find a set for sale that I was willing to buy. I was even considering breaking my duck and buying a set from StewMac, but they don't seem to do them anymore, unless I'm just not very good at searching their website. So then I had the idea that I'd print off some plans, and I've got some sheets of acrylic and I could make my own using that. And then I thought again that I've actually got a 3D printer and it sits sadly unused for the vast majority of its life, and it would actually be a very good way of making this template set. So what I'm going to do is drop on my laptop, open up Tinkercad, which is an online 3D modeling application, and starting with one of the very easy basic templates, start modeling something that I can print off, hopefully to the right size and shape, that we can use it as a template for this thing. This is going to be a little bit trial and error, but that's how I always learn things. And it's fairly straightforward in Tinkercad. I'm just going to drop a cube onto the workspace and set it to the dimensions that I want. This is actually going to be the body of the template. I'll just move it out of the way. Next up, I'll bring another cube on, and this will represent the cutout in the template. So again, I'll make it the dimensions that I want it. I add on a 6mm radius. Now it's a little bit quirky the way it does this. It'll add a radius all the way around, and if we make that the same thickness as our template, we'll have a radius cut out, and we don't really want that. So to avoid that, I make it much taller. Next, with that element selected, I'll hit the hole button, which will, as it says, turn it into a hole. And we'll get it roughly into position. Hit the Align tab, and I'll just center that in both dimensions. Now with that done, just to ensure that I don't get that radiused hole, I'm just going to select this and drop it down a little bit so it's a straight portion of the object that's creating the hole. Then I'll just select everything, hit the group button, and that second element becomes our hole. And there we have our template. And that, to me, looks about right. So having done that, we save it out as an STL file, which will then download. And we can open Cura, which is our slicing software, just very quickly check the settings, and they look about right, and hit the slice button. This is a very quick process of something as simple as this. And with that done, we can just save that to our disk drive, which we can then take to the printer, which is all set up, and off it pops. And this will take a bit of time to print, so we can get back into the workshop and continue with the build. Okay, and while that's cooking, we'll get this tape off here and just see how we've done on this. That actually looks to have gone on really well, and it's gone into these little sections that run along the neck nicely as well. They'll take a little bit of cleaning up, and I might just have to do a little bit of extra work kind of gluing these ends together, but all in all I think that's gone very well. So my next trick is to get this bit trimmed up, get this end trimmed up, so that we can get this final piece set in place. I'm going to try and get the best shot I can of this, but first off I'm just going to kind of snip this as best I can, just to get rid of the bulk of the waste. It's like really delicate, so I don't want to be too rough with it. And then I'm just going to take a chisel, slowly but surely we'll trim that down to a straight line. Kind of following the curve that it's going into in there. And let's do exactly the same on this bit. If anything, I'm being even more careful on this one because the glue's still comparatively soft. And that actually feels really good. With those little ends cleaned up, we can now kind of measure out how much of this we need. Cut cut off 3 lengths. And break out the glue again. So back to the printer, and it's coming to the end of its run. It's taken about an hour and a half to do this. Just spraying some isopropyl alcohol and water mix on just to make it a little bit easier to get off. Pop it off with a scraper. Okay, so there's the test print off the printer. It's looking okay. Obviously that is way too thin to use as a template, but there's no point printing it out any thicker when we're not actually going to use it. Now, dimensionally, we look to be pretty close. It's definitely close enough for the kind of work that we want to do, so that's good. However, I do think the radius for the bearing to run in is just a little bit too tight. So I'll amend that on the next one. I'll just bump it up by 0.5 millimeter, and that should give us the dimension that we want. But all in all, I think that is absolutely spot on. I think the only thing I will change about it is I'll put some little reference marks in. I might just put a little kind of hole each end of the center line, just so we've got something a little bit more to align it with. But all in all, I think that's good. I'm going to print the next one out of white because I think that'll look better, but apart from that, yeah, quite happy with it. And that only really leaves us one job to do, which is to get this out of clamps, get the masking tape off, and just see if we can get this cleaned up to an acceptable standard. Assuming that it's all gone down how we want it to. And that all looks to have gone on very nicely. So I think I'll bring you in a little bit closer and we can see if we can get this cleaned up. Now, I asked a question back end of last episode whether anyone would like to see a video on how I go about preparing and sharpening my card scrapers. And the response to that was a resounding yes. I had so many people commenting saying they'd love to see that. Now, initially I thought what I would do is just do a very brief section of part of one of these videos, a couple of minutes explaining the process. But I figured so many people are interested and so many people want to know that it's perhaps worth a little bit more effort than that. So I'm actually going to make a dedicated video on the subject, and that will be coming out kind of in the next week or so, probably on a Saturday evening. So keep a lookout for that, and hopefully we can answer a lot of your questions on the subject. Okay, and there is the headstock all cleaned up, and I think that looks absolutely wonderful. And as you can see there, the way that it kind of transitions into the fretboard looks really good as well. So very, very happy with the way that that's come out. Next job is to drill out and fit the tuners, and also we can start working on this headstock logo, which I think is going to be quite difficult. I want to do mother of pearl on a Wenge background, so there's a little bit of working out to do of how I'm going to actually do that, but all of that is for the next episode. I'm going to leave this one here. So as always, hit that like button if you've enjoyed this, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.